welcome back to my channel, beautiful minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany, and today I am doing the A to Z hot or not book tag. This tag was originally created by another bibliophile reads. I was tagged by several people, so thank you to everyone who tagged me. This is a super fun tag. And when I was watching people's answers, I'm like, this is such a fun way to kind of get to know people. So the prompts are A through Z, and you're supposed to give really, really short answers and like kind of keep things moving. So I'm going to try to do that. But for some of these, I think that there are some caveats that I need to share. So yeah, so I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. All right, so A is for audiobooks. Hot or not? So hot in my life right now. I would have said not at this time last year, but right now, audiobooks are it. B is Bildungsroman or Bildungsroman, depending on who you ask, which is dealing with a person's formative years or spiritual education. Hot. Love a coming of age story. C is for children's books. I would say hot. I've been seeing a lot of people do this tag and it seems like they're talking more about picture books than middle grade. And I prefer middle grade to picture books, but children's books as a whole, hot. D is for digital. So I would assume that that means ebooks, although we have audiobooks on here, and I would say that those are digital as well. I would say overall that they're not hot for me, but I love reading my Kindle in bed at night, especially if I'm reading a giant book like I've been reading through the Stormlight Archives this year. Those are big books and they are not comfortable to hold when you are reading in bed. So for that, Kindle is the way to go. So I'm gonna say kind of in the middle. E is for experimental. Overall, I think probably not. F is for fantasy. Hot, hot, hot. I am entering my fantasy era for sure. Actually, I think I started entering it last year and I just keep going. G is for graphic novel. I would say tepid. Not hot, not cold. I've liked some of the graphic novels I've read this year. I've read quite a few that I feel like are very subpar. So I'm kind of all over the place. If we're including manga in this, I would say manga is more on the hot side than just a straight up graphic novel. H is for horror. Not. I'm such a wimp. I is for inspirational. I would say not. I read some books that may be considered inspirational, but it's not something that I really seek out. I find a lot of books that are billed as like, they're so inspirational, often feel a bit cheesy to me. J is for journalism. Overall, I'd say not. I've read a couple books that were rooted in journalism this year and they weren't my favorites. I don't really love journalistic style, although I do appreciate really fleshing out your sources and having lots of facts. So kind of a toss-up, but probably not. K is for Kitsch, which has a popular sentimental appeal. I guess it depends. I would say overall, probably not. A lot of books that are have a super popular appeal usually aren't the best for me, but there are books that definitely have sentimental appeal to me that I love. So I guess there are some that fit into that category that would be hot, but overall not. L is for library. Hot for sure. M is for mystery. Right now in my life, I would say not. I don't gravitate toward mysteries. Don't usually want to pick them up, but there have been points in my life where that has been the majority of what I've read. So kind of depends on my mood, but my mood right now is definitely not. N is for nonfiction. I would say hot. I am getting more and more into nonfiction. I have always loved spiritual nonfiction, like that helps me in my growth in my relationship with God. But other nonfiction has been very iffy for me. And I'm finally starting to get into some more like historical nonfiction and other nonfiction like that. And I'm really loving it. O is for omnibus. Not. I already said I don't love reading books that are just like giant and uncomfortable to hold. So I do have a Jane Austen omnibus that is beautiful. I love it and I will never get rid of it because it's real pretty on my shelf. But you better bet that I never read any of those books out of it. P is for poetry. Tepid. I like poetry, but it's not something that I really dedicate much time to reading other than in our homeschool. We read quite a bit of poetry, homeschooling. We read a poem a day. But overall, it's just kind of like, I like it, but I don't prioritize it. Q is for quests. So that means the protagonist goes on some sort of quest, could be physical, could be spiritual. Hotter than hot. I love me a good quest story with someone who is seeking something. Again, whether it be physical or spiritual, and I feel like that can kind of tie into the Bildungsroman kind of plot as well. I love it. R is for romance. This is like, couldn't be colder, honestly. I am not a romance fan, which is really funny because I used to be when I was younger. And now I just find romances entirely unrealistic to the point that it pulls me out of the story most of the time. And that's probably just because I've been married for over 15 years. But I can sometimes get behind a romance that is a subplot, but I do not like books that are just intentionally supposed to be romances. And most of the time, I don't even like romances that are subplots. S is for sci-fi. I would say that's on the hotter side. It's like warm, because I am getting to the point where I like more sci-fi, but it's not a genre that I gravitate towards. I tend to gravitate more towards fantasy than sci-fi. T is for translation. So anything translated from a language that is not your native speaking language. Hot, 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 hot. I love translated works. I love translated classics. I just love seeing from a different perspective and a different part of the world that might not be the part that I've looked from. So in a classic setting, that could be, you know, we're reading history from a very Eurocentric vision, and then seeing something that's translated from Russian or Chinese is so interesting to me. So love anything translated. U is for Übermensch, which is Superman or extraordinary human, a protagonist who can do everything. I would say I like that. I mean, I don't know if it's hot. It's warm. I do like the chosen one trope, so I feel like that kind of ties in. V is for Victorian, which is literature published from 1837 to 1901. One of the hottest things on this list for me. I love me some Victorian literature. I grew up with Victorian literature, so it has been a lifelong love of mine. W is Western. I'm gonna say not, but that's only because I've never picked up a Western. I don't really know whether or not I like it. X is for X-rated. So remember how I said you couldn't get colder than romance? You can, and it's X-rated. Y is for young adults. I would say not. There are exceptions, but I'm finding that at least a lot of more modern YA just isn't for me. I lived through being an incredibly angsty teenager. I don't know how people put up with me. That's how angsty I was. And I just don't want to relive that. And there's a lot of angst in YA books, so there are exceptions, but overall, it's not for me. And Z is for Zeitgeist, which is the spirit or mood of the times. I can't think of an example of a book that I've read that has that, but I feel like I probably would like that, so I guess I'll say hot. Well, that's it for this tag. I probably went longer than I needed to, but I'm one of those people who doesn't do well with answering without caveats. So there you have it. I would love to hear your answers in the comments down below. Love to hear what you consider like hottest of the hot and like nottest of the not. So if you want to share that, feel free to do so. Always love chatting with you guys. I'm also gonna tag some people officially. If you have not done this video, I don't think any of the people that I'm about to tag have done this video. If you have, I'm sorry. Consider yourself not tagged, I guess, if you've already done it. But if you have not done it, I would love to hear your answers for this. I'm going to tag Courtney from Courtney Reads, Amanda from Book Lover Amanda, Whitney Drew, and also Holly from Lovely Day with Holly. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to hear more bookish content from me. And I will see you again next time.